The Jewish community here in New York is fed up by what they call disproportionate targeting by state and local officials. This has led to claims that their communities are responsible for the spread of the coronavirus, a message that they say is not only untrue, but dangerous.
People have to wear their masks, people have to social distance, and sometimes a summons is given because it needs to be. But we have to be careful not to overreach.
But that's exactly what folks here feel the government is doing, and they're using social media to show what's happening.
Because we have a list.
A list of what? You have a list of schools that are open?
Yes.
So you have a summons that you're writing before even coming into the school, because you just came into the school. There's not one kid here.
No.
That inspector and many others, those roaming around my district, have been sent to my district with a list on a mission.
Assemblyman Simcha Eichenstein represents several neighborhoods in what's known as the red zone. That's how Governor Andrew Cuomo is classifying a high infection area. And the city is sending in officials to ensure their schools, houses of worship, and businesses are closed.
It's clear what has happened here. They've pulled inspectors from the buildings department, HPD, you name it. Any agency you could think of that has inspectors basically said, you're off your regular beat. You're going to Borough Park or you're going to Midwood and you're going to harass these Jewish stores.
There's nobody sitting in the restaurant. Everything is okay. You're giving me a ticket because my doors are open?
In this video, an inspector cites restaurant owner Jacob Green for just having the doors open and therefore, quote, violating a dining ban. Green's restaurant is limited to offering takeout, and he says he was simply letting air in on a hot day. A city councilman was able to have this summons rescinded.
I've had people reach out to my office. Some takeout place came up. They showed me the summons. Reason for the summons, violating the governor's executive order. Like no further definition, what, when, how. I mean, they haven't gotten the basic training.
Eichenstein says the religious community began losing trust in the government after restrictions kept houses of worship closed until phase 4 of reopening.
To religious people, their houses of worship are essential. In the Jewish religion, and the Orthodox Jews go to synagogue 3 times a day to pray. Their entire way of life is around the house of worship. For houses of worship to be placed in phase 4? How offensive.
Now, Eichenstein says Jewish neighborhoods are being singled out and shut down.
The dialogue needs to continue. It can't be just enforcement without conversations.
Antisemitism advocate Devorah Halberstam is concerned about what she sees and hears coming from the top. Both Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio have cited large Orthodox gatherings when asking New Yorkers not to gather en masse.
It's ridiculous to take one particular wedding and to just put it out there like that means that everybody is not following the rules. You can do that with each and every community. But in this particular instance, it's being done with the Jewish community, and I think it just needs to be stopped.
Anti-Semitism and instances of violence against Jews hit an all-time high in the U.S. before the pandemic began.
Anti-Semitism goes back for centuries. This is not a new thing, which is why we have to be very responsible.
To roll this out as an Orthodox Jewish problem, first of all, is factually incorrect, not backed up by the state data, but it is also divisive, and it will cause a rise in anti-Semitism.
A fact mentioned often by health officials is that COVID-19 does not discriminate. It's people who do that. Gordon?
Well, let's look at the discrimination. The assemblyman you talked with seemed to have some overwhelming evidence that that's happening. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so he pointed to the fact that the city was releasing data by zip codes. And then when the governor released his cluster map, suddenly all of these zip codes that made up maybe a 45-minute, it would take you 45 minutes to drive from one end of what was then classified as the red zone to the other end. It would take 45 minutes. And so he's saying, if you continued to designate us by zip code, then we would know when our area was actually getting better. But in this cluster map, we can't reopen our schools, places of worship, businesses until the entire red zone reaches an acceptable positivity rate. And so he's saying, you know, you're keeping our neighborhoods shut down. And more than that, they are seeing inspectors come into their businesses, their schools, their places of worship specifically, even though they were following the rules of this red zone, to catch them in the act of breaking the rules. And so there's video after video on social media of this happening. And these business owners and school teachers, school is empty. Look, my business is empty. And in some cases, they're still getting written up summons. They're still getting tickets for thousands of dollars. And these inspectors didn't really even know what they were supposed to be doing. They're just going in and writing a ticket because, as Eichenstein said, it seems like somebody high up had targeted their community. So
Well,
they really felt like they were being cracked down on. And something else that I think is really important to mention, the Jewish leaders shut everything down before the city and the state did when COVID started to be a thing. Unprecedented. They shut down synagogues. You know, this is something that no one can remember ever having been done. Where the city lost them was in reopening, because places of worship were put in phase 4. And New York has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel in the world. And for them not to consult the Jewish leaders and the people who represent those districts just totally lost the trust and support of that community.
Well, it's something I never thought I'd see. The Western Wall in Jerusalem was shut down by the Orthodox community in advance of Yom Kippur. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. First time in Jewish history. And so to say that we should target, what do you think is behind the targeting here? Is it truly, are we really looking at anti-Semitism?
You know, I think that the people in this community that I spoke with said whether the state and local leaders are truly anti-Semitic or not, the problem is in the messaging, is in the imaging. When the governor holds a press conference and only shows pictures of Jewish gatherings, when he talks about how we need to stop mass gatherings and people are breaking the rules, that sends the message to people that it's only the Jewish community who's doing that. And, you know, there's videos that I've watched of, you know, an Orthodox Jewish man recording secretly on his phone, and he's walking through his own neighborhood. And because his neighbors have seen messaging like that, now they're discriminating against him. And despite the fact that, you know, they're outside and maybe they're not wearing masks, they're saying, hey, put your mask on. I don't want people like you walking around outside near me without a mask on. You know, the messaging makes a difference, and it's leading to an increase in anti-Semitism and violent attacks because of anti-Semitic feelings, whether the leadership means for that to happen or not.
Did you get an opportunity to reach out either to the governor's office or the mayor's office to get a comment on that?
So I did reach out, and the two people that I spoke to in the story are both people who have the ear of at least the mayor. And I reached out to the health department's office, I reached out to the mayor's office, and I reached out to the governor's office. The health department referred me to the mayor because they said, you know, like, it's not just our department that has inspectors going out, it's a multi-agency effort, which supports the claim that Eichenstein made that, you know, these inspectors are coming from beats that have nothing to do with, you know, the businesses they're coming into. They don't know what they're doing. And so the mayor's office, despite being told by these community officials that he should speak to me, chose not to, and referred me to a comment that they had made that didn't really have anything to do with our story. So, you know, you can make your own assumptions about why they decided not to speak with us, but they refused, and then we didn't hear back from the state.
Well, I'm really surprised because, in my view, one of the orders from Governor Cuomo to take nursing home patients who were actively infected with COVID, instead of putting them into hospitals, they sent them back to the nursing homes. And that's the #1 reason for the high number of deaths in New York State is because of that order. I'm really surprised he's not owning that. And owning that, you know, he's the one responsible. He made a mistake, and it seems like he's getting a pass. We've got a viewer comment from Kim on Facebook. She says, it's hard to believe this ugly monster of anti-Semitism is on the rise 75 years after the end of World War II. How can this be? Got an answer to that one, Kayla?
You know, before the pandemic even happened, there were studies that said anti-Semitism within the U.S. was at an all-time high. And, you know, last year we saw those attacks on the Jewish community in Muncie and in New Jersey. And those were just, there was no reason. It was people who were just mad, and they targeted the Jewish community. And that's the fear now. Devorah Halberstam, the woman who I spoke to for this story, she is such an advocate in that community because her son was murdered when he was just a teenager, simply because he was identifiably a Jew. You know, this is happening. Even like anti-Semitism graffiti is all over the city. They're seeing it. They're seeing an attitude shift. And the pandemic, it was here before the pandemic. The pandemic and the messaging surrounding their community is making it worse.
Well, Caitlin, thank you for being with us. Thanks for this wonderful report. It's appalling, but at the same time, wonderful that it's shining a light on it. And I hope the mayor gets this message. I hope the governor gets this message. But I hope all of us get this message. This is one where we've pledged never again, and to see something as blatantly anti-Semitic and as blatantly anti-religion. This is a time for all of us, all people of faith, to stand up and say, we have First Amendment rights here. The First Amendment is at stake. Justice Alito has already said he views, a Supreme Court justice says, I view religious liberty at stake in America today. And we're giving too much power to politicians in this pandemic. And the first thing they're doing is shutting down religious services. We need to stand for our rights that Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. That's extended to mayors, to governors, to legislatures. You can't make a law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So let's stand together on this one. We need to. Our liberty is at stake. For the latest on CBN News, all the latest, you can go to cbnnews.com. Download also the CBN News Channel app. You can get it on your mobile device, your mobile phone, any of the apps, but also on smart TVs, and stay ahead on the latest news from CBN News.
Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Key. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so we can reach more people with encouraging content like you just watched, and so you never miss a beat. See you next time, and God bless.